What's going on, guys? Welcome to Off the Court. Today we have a special guest, someone that Pat and I have had the chance to really get to know and work with and be around a lot more in the last couple of years. And we're just so excited to bring him here because we have a lot of stuff going on in the Armenian basketball world, and he's the guy with all of the details. Rich Elmoyan, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Lots of chaos, but something Narva likes to call it controlled chaos. So it's good. It's good though. Thanks for the invitation,
you
guys.
gotta enjoy it.
Oh yeah. I mean, if it's basketball related, I mean, it's good stress. If my hair is graying from basketball, does it really count?
No. I mean, look at us, man. Look at us. We're in the middle of playing in a big tournament. We're in Novosaryan mode. Mm-hmm. You are one of the busiest guys probably right now when it comes to a lot of things. You have a lot on your plate. I kind of want you to give us just a little bit of a background on where you're at right now, but also how did you get to this point in your basketball life and, the media life and all of that combined?
Yeah, so I lead the media for the AABA Pro-Am Basketball League, which is a Pro-Am league based in Academy, USA, Glendale, California specifically. And I also lead the media for the Armenian men's national team. And I as well am a assistant head coach of the women's varsity basketball program for Polytechnic in Pasadena. So I have a couple of hats that I wear. All of them are kind of interrelated with one another. How I got there is a little bit of a bumpy and rocky road, which everyone can probably kind of relate to in their personal lives. And started off playing basketball. Grew up in both Glendale and in Armenia. I moved when I was 9 to Armenia and came back when I was 12, 13. Had a major culture shock experience, growing up in Glendale, born in Orange County, but moving to Armenia was probably one of the biggest catalysts of why I'm so passionate about Armenian basketball without even having to think twice. My father played college basketball. My mother played college basketball. My grandmother played college volleyball. My other grandmother was a gymnast for the Soviet Union. So we come from a very, very athletic family, not necessarily by size, given that my brother is the tallest one at 6'3", but more
Still
so
a big guy.
Oh yeah. I mean, but more so from the angle of our activities off, outside of the workplace, right? Having healthy habits. My parents never had soda on the table, right? Like when I was growing up. So all these things kind of led to kind of a professional environment by the time I moved back from Armenia. When I got to LA and went to Hoover High School for a semester, switched to Burbank High, and then afterwards I moved on to San Francisco State University, where I went for academics with geography and international relations, but I also walked on the team for a couple of months until I got cut when a D1 guy came into the picture. So we can go into that a little bit later, but in a nutshell, my interest for basketball kind of started back then, but it set the foundation to play for the 20 and under national team, being the first Armenian American to represent Armenia in sports. So a lot of the Armenian Americans that play today, we look back at the circumstances in 2014 when we took that leap of faith of a diaspora member representing Armenia, and we understood, okay, it is doable, it is eligible, and it is practical. We just have to build a structure, and here we are in 2022, 2023, building that structure after 2 gold medals from Armenia. So that's where I'm at, and I'd like to say that I'm fortunate enough to be in this position and to be able to work with you guys for the AABA Pro-Am League as well. So, yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell. I don't know.
I mean, a lot of stuff there that I did not know about personally. I mean, we have seen you and played with you from a young age too, but hearing that is definitely a big task, man, for a young kid to, take on that role, like you said, man. That I appreciate it.
I always tell my dad, I tell him, I'm like, Pop, like, I'm so confused as to how social of a butterfly I am, because we moved every 3 years growing up, and it kind of throws you into positions where you have to be able to communicate, right? Being able to understand that every person's life affects how you communicate, right? Being understanding of how these doors can be opened. And you learn that through trial and error. And when you're able to move around so frequently, you really do understand that, hey, life just really is a bunch of opportunities. And if you miss one, you can just move on to the next one.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah.
When did you get the high school coaching job position?
I got that job 2 weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
I got that 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Breaking news, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to be with Coach K, Kiana Flanagan. She's an AAU trainer frequently at Ararat. She's also training a lot of the women's, the younger ladies at Ararat.
I think I've seen her
instilling,
before.
and instilling that dog mentality, me and her say.
Yeah.
And I call her twin. She's exactly my twin. We coached together at LA Select, an AAU program based in Glendale, California, and moved. And from there we clicked. And Polytechnic Pasadena is where she's the head coach and I'm the assistant. So
that's cool, man. That's cool. Yeah. You know, a lot of that, like you said, kind of sets you up for where you're at right now. And you, one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, as someone that's more, I want to say behind the scenes in a way now, how does it feel as a former player where we've talked about this all the time, like you just get that eagerness to get back on the court and play, but where do you kind of see yourself right now, more off the court, or do you want to kind of find your way back on the court?
It's funny because when I got back to Los Angeles, so I was in San Francisco for 5 years, where, you know, when I didn't make the SF State team, but I made the Armenian national team, and then after I had such a great stint with the Armenian national team, then SF State became interested again. However, I had already started an internship and kind of a way for me to pay my way through college, because San Francisco is not affordable at all. I had 6 jobs just alone to take care of it. I became and this is where people usually laugh and don't really know, is I became a college cheerleader to stay in shape for the Armenian national team.
Interesting.
Truly, the day I got cut from SF State was the day that the cheerleading team reached out to me and said, "Hey, we heard that you're a big body, we need you, and interested to know if you're interested in college cheer." Went out to a tryout. They said, "You're weirdly enough a natural," and I said, "I am not a natural." Clearly, they were lying. They just needed some bodies. But essentially, I understood that maybe basketball isn't everything for me. So I moved away from basketball for a little bit, came back around to it naturally, and I said, you know what, like, I like organizing things. I've been the kid since I was growing up drawing logos, right? I was the guy that would measure the distance between Kobe's number 2 versus the number 4 next to each other that make a 24, how that jersey would look like if there was an alternate, right? If, let's say, the Lakers wanted to add another color, what color does that look like? Black is too much. And as a kid, I would always try to keep up with these things. People were doodling houses in elementary school. I was doodling each and every single logo, from baseball all the way down to football. And my parents took me to art school for 10 years, so that helped a little bit. But, I realized that the organizing factor really for basketball, what's missing in the 21st century, is the accessibility of not only graphic design, but the organization of events and overall basketball production that allows us to have that feel-good factor that is very difficult to measure, at least from a generation above us that only thinks analytically. How much money does this bring? How much yada, yada, yada. But seldom do we look at how do players feel whenever they're wearing a jersey. So how do the players feel when they walk on the court? What logos are around? What does that represent, the brand, right? So that's when I realized that, you know what, I'm in a unique circumstance where I understand these concepts, and I want others to also understand these concepts, the younger generation growing up, and kind of just an all-in approach of, hey, we deserve this. And our community now is becoming a trendsetter to many professional leagues around the world on how to implement social media, how to implement graphic design, how to implement communication, interview process at the most bang for your buck, where it democratizes essentially the things that we didn't grow up with. So kind of to wrap that up a little bit, I recognize with my talent, there's many players out there, but with my capabilities off the court, there's not many in our community as of right now, but I would like to see many more. And that's why I kind of stay in the off the court now more than on the court, because we can find many rich Elmoyans on the basketball court. But I'd like to think that where I stand and fit in our, larger Armenian cause, if we will, is off the court. Podcast.
Yeah.
Plug right there.
No, I love the confidence that you have in your own abilities. I think that's something that, everybody that's up and coming, they have to kind of recognize that. What are you good at? What do you like to do? And, it's a little unfortunate. I feel like a lot of guys nowadays, or whoever it could be, they go towards a career path that they may not like, but that's what they think they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But just chase your passion.
Truly. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but like chasing your passion, you mentioned it exactly, right? What does that look like? The operation of chasing your dreams. Like sometimes I speak with my dad about this, and I say, hey, Pop, like if there's anything I would do differently in the past, was asking you, what is the order of operations of chasing your dreams? Mm-hmm. And for those that are listening, I kind of want you to really think about, what does the first step, the second step, the third step, the fourth step, because they say work hard, but they don't tell you how. They tell you, hey, hustle for the ball. They don't tell you how. They say take a charge. They don't tell you how. Mm-hmm. Those are the questions that growing up, I was a really annoying kid. I would ask a lot of questions. I'd ask very dumb questions to my AAU coach, Pooh Richardson, who is a legend in UCLA terms, right? And I would ask him so many dumb questions where he'd go like, these are the dumb questions that, honestly, I love that you're asking, because I don't know how to answer them right now, because I've not been in a position to be able to. You know what I mean? So like asking those questions is very important. And for example, one time I was giving a speech in high school, and I noticed someone was dozing off during class. I went to that person after class. I said, what made you doze off? I'm just interested to know what made you doze off in my speech, because I want to get better at that. Mm-hmm. I recognized that at that time I was still pretty good at what I was doing for my age, right? But I needed to understand, why did this person look away? Because I feel like I gained their respect, but if I didn't, I need to do better the next time. Yeah. And understanding that as you correct yourself when you're growing up and getting to the level that you want to get to, if that is naturally a part of your system, you're going to go far. And that's what the chasing the dreams is, because you're actually building consistency in your practices. So that's what I kind of want to mention, is like, what does following your dreams look like? And that these are some very important questions that need to be answered in our community to know what their best strengths are. Right?
Of course, man. I always say it's something that I've been talking about a lot lately. When you work somewhere and you want to approach your boss or whatever the case, I've always said, you want to ask the question of, how do I get to where I want to be, instead of asking for just a raise, or same way when you're playing basketball. Just by asking your coach, how do I get 5 more minutes a game? It's not going to cut it. You need to ask your coach, how do I become a better player? How do I become a better teammate? How do I do all these things? And putting that together in basketball terms, I think a lot of kids can learn from that too.
Yeah,
that's a great point that you said. I'm
working with one of the kids, and I'll keep him anonymous for the sake of him being under 18. But I was telling him, like, there's a strategy on how to average 20 points per game, and it's not to shoot the lights out. Like, you don't need that. Yeah. All you need is 5 points per quarter. And when you simplify the game to that extent, it takes off the pressure of the player thinking that they need to score 20 per night. But it's quite easy to average 20 points per game nowadays. It's just, if your order of operations doesn't follow through with what your goal is, then how are you going to get those 20 points? And then by the time you're not getting those numbers, people are mad at you, you're mad at yourself, and it just becomes a big mental debacle. And I agree with you, right?
Man. I mean, that is a whole subject on its own, the way that basketball is now for these kids. But one of the things that kind of ties into all of this, and it's something that's developing, and we'll get to it in just a little bit, but it's the overall, the league itself of AABA, AABA. I want to talk to you a little bit about the beginning of the league, where it is now, and where we want to see it go from there. Pat was going to briefly kind of talk about his experience in the beginning and how he remembers it, and then we'll kind of go from there. But Pat, you wanted to
Yeah. First, do you like that pamphlet I gave you? It was the first criteria that Suren gave us when we started. Honestly. I remember looking at it, I thought this is going to be big. But yeah, I remember the first experience we had. This was 2021, I believe. Suren calls us up and says, "Hey, we'd like the both of you to be part of this. It's a league. It's a short-term league. At the time, it was 2-3 weeks, so nothing."
It was a tournament.
Yeah, it was a tournament. Yeah. He says, "Well, there's going to be a lot of familiar guys here, but we're trying to implement a new rule, and Zando was going to be a part of it." And I told myself, I love working with Zando. I know at the time he was trying to pursue his career in sports and sports commentary, and it was such a fun experience, man. It was very competitive. Yeah. There were a lot of, like, I remember Dre had his own team. Manuel brought his team. It was a little different from what it is now, but it was really fun and competitive. Do you remember that? That tournament?
I remember being a spectator for that event, but I wasn't necessarily a part of the AABA until it came into its league formation. So the tournament in itself, I was a spectator online, and I enjoyed it. I said, hey, there's something to start off with here. I saw the photo with Rex Kalamian and you guys. I remember that, and it was a good kickstart to something that we had yet to see as an Armenian American community. That hosts, like, for example, like Homenet Man, right? The biggest amateur, consistently. What is it again? It's the most consistent amateur sports event in all of California, right? So that in itself tells you that, okay, Armenian sports has a place in the overall greatness of Los Angeles sports, I should say, or overall SoCal, right? So how do you galvanize kind of like that next level, right, of how do you make the game so competitive to the point where you can actually move on and create opportunities for yourself where it becomes a means? Because I think I could speak for all three of us here. If we find open gym, we're there. We don't even need to be paid, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of these guys, they have that same mentality, but why not get basketball to the point in Los Angeles where it could be considered a side hustle? And that's what we're moving towards to. We're trying to create this program to provide opportunities for these players to either ultimately find a means to get compensated for their game, right? Because they've been working on it for so many years. I think they deserve it. But also just being found and understanding their place in the system, meaning that, like you mentioned, Zando, right? I got probably close with Zando because of AABA. I've known him for a while, but I didn't know he wanted to pursue a career at, like, for example, through Full Sail University. I didn't know he was trying to become a commentator. Now he's at NFL Fox, right? So with that being said, it's important for the staff members of that league to also be educated on where they can move forward to, and not just the players. And even if the players want to work in the sports field, but let's say, one of them just pursued an easy route in a career, and now basketball is something of their interest, and they can go overseas and get the game tape through the AABA. And since the beginning of the AABA, I've seen a lot of progression. I took over as director of media for AABA on July 27th. I remember this very well because Suren was just flying back from Armenia, and he said, hey, we got to raise some funds for this league. And at that time, I had never raised money in my life. I had, never gone through sponsorships before, and I'm still learning today, and I'll be the first one to admit it. But that's that process of trying to get that fall league started in 2022 is when things officially took off.
Yeah.
When things started to look different. The jerseys looked nice. You had sponsors. You had people that believed in Armenian basketball overall. And then after that, we went into the spring season where we upped it up. We went up a notch, and then we doubled our sponsorship, if not tripled the amount of people that believed in it. So we're noticing that, may it be that the business model is working or whatever it may be, at the end of the day, you got to give it to Jack Galajian for even beginning this whole thing, right? We can't mention the AABA without Jack Galajian, as much as Jack Galajian likes to stay in the background and just look at it from afar like a benevolent Kirk Kerkorian, right? So, I mean, Kirk Kerkorian himself was benevolent, but what I mean is just from a basketball perspective, we have we have yet to have a person like Jack Galajian that can bring NBA players, Armenian kids, and a coding class all within a 20 feet radius. Like, this is such an important thing. And to have the AABA in that same presence and growing at a pace that it is today, I mean, I can't love it. I can't say how much I love it more, because we have a rule, right, that says you have non-Armenians you have to play for. That touches on the factor of Armenians, being able to work with non-Armenians in the workplace, right? How does that look like? How do we collaborate, right? Like, these are concepts that we're trying to instill in AABA on top of the players finding footage for their needs.
So one of the things, Rich, that I was kind of thinking about myself from afar for AABA, and I wanted to ask you, because you are way more involved with the detailed day-to-day organizational factors. What is your biggest challenge at this point, being a part of that league from the back end?
I think the toughest thing is, how do you build a brand from scratch? That is the toughest thing, right? And not only that, how do you build a brand around this concept that hasn't been necessarily done in the Armenian community before? And we're basing our model off of many different things, right? We're modeling it off of, let's say, Eastern European basketball, kind of the crest, the design, all those things. It's kind of meant for it to look professional. In terms of the schedule and everything like that, obviously everyone has real work jobs, right? So Saturdays and Sundays is when we're really working on these things. So it's tough to get people to commit and to treat it really like a next level Drew League or something like that, right? Which is where media comes in, right? So one thing that I am always very fortunate enough to say is that Suren Armenian, he teaches me a lot of how David Stern would hold his conversations with him, right? And how he would approach media. Because the NBA didn't necessarily become the NBA until they were able to learn how to market Michael Jordan. And the hard part about what we're doing at the AABA level is that, how do you get people to believe in a product that just hasn't been out there before? That's what we're aiming to do. We're looking to approach the obstacle of how do you build this brand through our media being stellar. And what I mean by stellar, I mean providing the game stats, providing the photography, the videography, the highlights, right? Because a lot of players just want that. And if you know,
who doesn't love being recorded
and
filmed?
Come on, right?
Yeah.
And
pictures.
And everyone's a competitor in this game.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're probably in the wrong league, And these competitors, they love when their work is shown,
Of course.
Because like we said, these players haven't got paid, or they're looking to get paid, and therefore that this footage means a lot to them. And we're providing a very low cost of an entrance, essentially, that allows them to play in this league and to grab the game tape they're looking for and move on. I mean, we got 9 guys that moved on from the AABA and are playing overseas. Yeah. Like, that is a very big conversion rate in my eyes. And again, learning through Suren Armenian and the Jack Galajians of this world, we're learning how to tackle these obstacles of the main issue. How do you build a brand from scratch?
Yeah, working with Jack and Suren, I learned a lot from them personally. I know Alec has too, but those two are extremely professional. They take pride in this league, and they want to make sure that they're not getting anybody that's going to cause harm to the league. Yeah. So they do their homework.
And they believe in it too. That's the hardest part, right? You're trusting. Think of it from their end, right? They're in their midlives already, right? And we are, at least the majority of the people running it, late 20s, early 30s. They're really taking a chance on us in a very inexperienced area. Taking a leap of faith of, hey, we're going to provide updated stats, updated information. It might not be perfect just yet, but I guarantee you in 5 years, we're going to look at a different product, right? Looking at this at a 5-year, 10-year plan. And I have to mention a couple of other names that really took us to the next level, Fanzia and Miasin. They believed in us too. And this is not something you should be taking risks in. And I'll be very honest. Many business owners might look at this and be like, I'm not going to take this risk, but that's where the media, where every post is getting shared at least 75 times. That's where those eyes are interested. The analytics and everything are interested. And something like, for example, Novosartian Games also has that caliber, right? Of sharing content, a community concept here that you can really build off of. So if you look at the analytics, it's there. It's just, you got to understand how to mesh it all together and create that product that people are needing but didn't know they need.
I think the one thing that you hit on is the fact that the guys in charge of the league were willing to take a risk, in a way, a leap of faith, and enable the youth to come in and, you know, having a staff, like you said, the commentary, the producing, everything, the photography, it's all being done by a majority 35 and under, you know? So that's one thing that we've always said it. You can learn a lot by looking at other people. And I think one thing that Homan at Men or Novosaryan Games or any of that can learn from AABA is, wow, these guys are taking a youthful approach to something that's very different, I get, but you guys have done a great job and you guys keep doing a great job. And I definitely wanted to kind of give you guys your flowers and say, man, when we were a part of that tournament, it was fun. It was a grind. But when Pat and I and Zando look back at the production and where we were, we obviously saw how much potential it had, and you guys took it to that next level. So
I appreciate
keep
that.
working at it, man.
You mentioned flowers. I have to bring this little small story.
Let's hear it.
For the first time ever, I received flowers as a male, and I want to say on my, what was it,
Felt
like last
good,
week?
or?
Last week for my little sister's best friend. She goes like, "Here's some flowers for your birthday." I'm like, I'm like, thanks. I don't think I've ever gotten flowers. I appreciate that. So when he said that, I just thought of it. But no, I appreciate that. And the guys like Anthony, George, Joe, Zando, you know, Anthony Garb, like all these people, you know, put in their effort. Grace Sarimian, the entire team on the sidelines, making sure the stats are correct. Chris Sarkisian, don't know what I'd do without that guy. It's these are very important figures that know their role. You know, there's no ego involved. There's no task too small or too big. I mean, we talked about this, right? I don't mind wiping the floors. I'm director of media. I don't mind wiping the floors if there's something on the floor, right?
I've seen Surin get out there.
You've seen Surin get out there, and he's refed Michael Jordan. He's teed up a couple of All-Stars from the 90s. He teed up Barkley.
He loves bringing
that up. Yeah. But the caliber of people that we have and the potential of the people that we have, it's like it's meeting halfway, and it's this beautiful thing. It's just,
it's fun. Like when I can't tell you, this season when I was coaching, I kept thinking to myself, I wish I was, not that I didn't enjoy coaching these guys, but commentating was such a different level of enjoyment because we had that freedom to talk about the game, and you know, just dealing with Anthony and those guys, they were just all funny guys. You on the side was just, we would crack jokes, we would laugh. And you know, it was a pleasure.
Adding that commentating factor in our games is very crucial. Not only from an angle of adding another perspective of kind of like teaching the youth if they're watching, right? Which the goal at the end of the day is for the youth to be watching, but also for us to have an opportunity of, is this a career that we can build out of this, right? Like, because commentating is very underrated, and it's not just in that realm. You can be a PA announcer, you can be a commentator, you can be a liaison, right? And we got guys like Sarah Jajayan, for example, that works in that realm, not necessarily in the commentating realm, but he assists the commentators a lot. The statisticians are just as important because they're providing the details for the commentators. I remember 100%. Half the time I was refreshing and I was like, damn, Chris Sarkisian already has the points up. Nice. Like, thanks, Chris. Like, you know,
having the real-time stats, everything like that. I mean, we take it for granted when we watch a guy on TV like a Mike Breen or whoever it is. I think Zando and I talked about it. You really appreciate it, and you want to get better at it, and you want to learn. It's a cool experience for sure, man.
And those experiences, it's meant, because the WABA at the end of the day is a developmental league for Armenian basketball overall, whether that's a professional league in Armenia or you're playing for the Armenian national team. That's what it's for. It's meant for you to have a springboard of some sorts, whether it's professional basketball or whatever it is. But nonetheless, it provides you the stepping stool, if you will, to get to that level. And I think it's a beautiful platform that we've been able to kind of grow into, and whether you're a staff member or you're a player.
I was actually going to ask you about that. The last fall season, it seemed like the rules, you said the uniform, the ball, and the rules, it changed to more the FIBA rules. Was that a direct influence from the Armenia Pro Leagues, or what was that about?
There were talks in 2022 to merge even the Armenia A League with the WABA Pro-Am. However, there was a lot of logistical issues that came with that.
I remember those discussions.
There were a couple players from the Armenia team or Armenia Pro team that came and played here. I remember Aaron Breeze is one of them.
Aaron Breeze is one of them. Jamal McCoy was one of them. There's who else did we have?
Derek was one of them too.
Derek was one of them. I believe Warren Halligar was going to be one of the players overseas as well, if I'm not mistaken. But look, a lot of the players came back with a positive influence from Armenia, and building more off of that. I mean, a lot of these players went through COVID and they didn't have updated footage. We forget about that. Honestly, I forget about that these players didn't have footage since 2019. How can you as a coach accept any footage from 2019, right? You look at this player, this guy could have easily gained weight 30 pounds, like even 60 pounds. The guy probably looks like Adam Sandler in Click, but it's a good reference, huh? But, it is a good reference. But essentially it's a very important aspect of the game that often gets overlooked.
Kind of transitioning into what I wanted to talk about next was the Armenian national basketball team, and obviously you are very involved with the media aspect along with some other things that you had mentioned to us earlier, but kind of wanted to get your take on everything. How's that been for you? What are some of the things that you're involved with the Armenian national team? And two big games coming up this upcoming Friday. Like I said, we're hoping to get this out before then so everyone can watch this episode and kind of have an idea of what this team has been working at to get to. And I want to kind of leave it off to you, man. How's that going?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been part of Basketball Federation since 2006. I've had my stints where some content writing in 2014 and 2015. However, I didn't join the the Armenia men's national team until 2023, like literally in May. Got called upon and we started to get our gears turning and start talking ideas of how we can elevate Armenia basketball, which is a branch of Basketball Federation of Armenia, for the Armenia men's national basketball team. Now, Armenia basketball is the overarching brand for the senior team. So in the future, we hope to also have women's basketball. However, for the sake of today's conversation, we'll only focus on the men's team. And obviously with the two back-to-back nights of Armenia versus France, it's a big deal. We have a lot on our hands. We're hosting the French. They understand that how much this game means to us, for example, right? We're ranked 87th in the world. We are ranked in the late 20s, early 30s in terms of ranking in Europe, right? We've proven that we've won 2 gold medals in the European small countries, but now we want more. We outgrew our pond is what we're essentially saying here, and that we have a product that is worth showing to the number 5 globally ranked team. So it's a very big deal for us to be able to not only have our inaugural match in the United States. This is something that's very historic, right? We haven't had a game before outside of even Europe.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't been able to watch this team in person. We've been watching online. It's very exciting.
And not only that, we also have our very first time playing the French national team. Also a very big milestone for the Armenians, which big kudos to Arthur Nazarian of the Basketball Federation of Armenia for being able to tie that knot with Boris Diaw and company for the French delegation over there. So we're very fortunate enough, and it's a big task, and we recognize what's going on. So being able to work with Cal State Northridge, right, providing us the space.
CSUN, baby.
CSUN has been super helpful. Very accommodating, right? The Armenian community and their and what they are able to offer, meaning all the way down from the t-shirts to the thunder sticks that you guys will see at the game, all the way down to the smoke fog. I'm not going to go into detail, right? But we are bringing an NBA level of production that our team, Anthony Abachi, who has done the documentary for Damian Lillard's Spotify album. He has done the work with Trey Young, Slam Magazine, Marshmello, the DJ. So we have professionals that have worked in this field before. Myself, that we were talking about earlier, right? Like, which one do you like, on court or off court? Well, my experience on the court allows me to help when I'm off the court, understanding these concepts. Social media, how are we going to make the noise? It's a very big game, and I can't emphasize this enough, mainly from a historic perspective, because the Football Federation of Armenia, the main governing body of soccer in Armenia, still until today talks about the Armenia versus France game in the 90s, where Yuri Djorkaeff, which is the former captain of the French national team of Armenian descent, also a good friend of my family in France, he was able to bring something to the table and legitimize that Armenian brand. So what the point of this entire thing is, three concepts from a media perspective, and we stand by these pillars, and we really want to hone in on it, is that A, legitimacy. We want to legitimize the Armenian brand, meaning that we're getting calls from the TBL, we're getting calls from different professional leagues saying, how are you guys running your media? And that's, from the media perspective, a good feeling for us, because we're legitimizing the brand. And then secondly, surprising. We want to legitimize this brand to the point where it's surprising, where people go like, oh my God, Armenian basketball has changed since they lost to Bosnia and Herzegovina by 120 points. We lost to Sweden by 120 points one time. And it just blows my mind that we're now at this place where we're playing the French national league team, and we actually have an opportunity to win. Bringing players with, sorry, I'm very passionate about this. I have to continue.
Hey, go for it,
but
man.
Going down from the media of video coordination, being able to find basketball players of Armenian descent that are eligible to play, right? The key word here is eligible, because I would say 90% of Armenians are not eligible to play and represent Armenia, unfortunately, given the diaspora factor. However, the diaspora is also a giant talent pool that, if perfectly executed, if the stars align, if the paperwork is perfect, then you can represent us. And that's why it's such a historic moment for us, being able to have guys like Connor Asigian, guys like Andre Spite McGurchian, guys like Ryan Kiachian, who's a West Coast elite player. Now he's in Cornell University. All these stars are aligning, and then the French team is sending a team that they didn't necessarily, I don't think they're sending their A team. But I think after this game, they're going to respect us and start sending their A team. Similar to what Iran did. Iran sent their B team and barely beat us by a hair. Barely. Right? So when we look at it from that perspective, of a media perspective, why is this game so important? It's going to have the same effect of that legitimacy, that surprising brand that in the 90s the Football Federation did. And let me get you to that third pillar, to that last point that I want to mention, is now. The third pillar, continuing from the legitimacy, the surprising, and the now. It's very important for us to be able to evolve as not only as a Armenian community, but as the sport develops, we need to be at the forefront of that development. Meaning that our trainers, our coaches, our players, our staff, everyone needs to be up to speed with what the most modern level of communication, event production, all of that. And that's where our three pillars stand. So if you notice our graphic design, there's always hints of small little things you'll see. A design of Tigran Metz that's done in Illustrator, right? Done in the background of kings and whatnot. Artashes Dynastia, which is the dynasty that led the Armenian kingdoms. We have that background, that we're descendants of kings. So we have to be able to implement that in a modern form. And that's why this entire project that we're working on is so important, and why we're so passionate about it, since at least we joined the team and Rex believed in us. So
to that point, obviously getting a guy like Rex Kalamian as the head coach of this team really brought a big persona. It brought the NBA pedigree. It brought a lot of things that a team needs, in my opinion, in order to gain some kind of what's the word?
Respect, if you will.
Respect. Yeah. I think when people see that this team is being led by a potential NBA head coach, someone that is giving back to his community in a way, all these things combined, you pick up the phone when a person like Rex calls you. Not to give a knock on any of the other guys that try to be the coach in the past, but it's a different feeling. And Pat always talks about it with our guests because a few of them have played for that original national team that was trying to be built.
Yeah.
Pat always brings it up, and I'll let him kind of elaborate on that too. Seeing where that was to where we are now, that had to happen.
You need to go there in order to get to here. Yes, 100%.
Pat has a lot of memories from those early days.
So, do you remember that 2013 potential team they were trying to take?
Yeah,
it was Shara.
Carlo Bardakian was Carl Bardakian was leading it.
Carl was trying to take a team to go down there. Majority were Armenians from America. And I remember Lil Z was on our show. He mentioned that. He said they weren't really, or the federation wasn't really, it didn't sit well with them. That was only majority from Americans. So I think now it's kind of changed a little bit, but we still have a good mix. And obviously Rex being there does help it bring that legitimacy that Alec was talking about. So it's kind of crazy how far it's come along.
Well, I think you guys mentioned some good points, right? And I will forever be thankful for what that generation did for us, right? Because I remember when I heard the news, Armenia men's national team, and I saw the photo of Garin Spenjian and Zara Zargarian and all that stuff, I was like, oh, it is possible to play, right? And I'm a kid in Armenia at that time. I moved from Armenia, right? So I had seen what it was like being on the U16 team at age 10. It was a complete different vibe. And one day, the Georgian national team for the 16 and under pulled me out. They said, hey, we got to check this kid's passport because it looked a different game, right? So it always comes out of a goodwill when the Basketball Federation of Armenia wants to implement more players outside of the United States. And I wholeheartely agree with this. And I'll give you a couple of reasons as to why. If you want to put all the players from of Armenian American descent, let's say, right? If you want to put all the players of that caliber from the United States to play for Armenia, you're not necessarily growing Armenia, which is obviously early on, these things you have to go through in order to learn these things, right? And in 2016, when Tigran Gökçen's team that won the gold medal with Andre Spite, that year that they also beat Azerbaijan, very big deal, right?
I remember that very vividly.
Yeah, so it was a lot of good stuff happening, but let's not forget, Tigran Gökçen is a very respected coach in Lebanon, very respected coach in Kazakhstan and other countries. So he was able to internationalize the game at a time when the game was already internationalizing, right? So around 2014, 2015, that's when you started noticing players like maybe Jokic coming up, maybe players that were getting scouted, right, during that time to come to the United States. And you're realizing that it's not that players were being brought in from the United States, it's just you were teaching a different game. So that game has been taught to Armenians in Armenia, and now you got guys like Tigran Mkartumian that is jumping over 3 dudes and dunking and is averaging 18 points. What is he averaging? Like 18 points as a 17-year-old. So players like Tigran Mkartumian, Yura Melikian, David Khachatryan, they all come from the Armenian Basketball Federation providing the circumstances for them to excel in Armenia. Because you have to understand, Armenia is late to the game when it comes to teaching the youth, but the talent is there. We've always had a talented women's basketball program, for example, even in the Soviet Union. Even for the men's program, we had pretty solid players like Vitaly Zastukhov, Armenak Alachachian. Armenak Alachachian was a silver gold medalist in the Olympics, many Eurobasket titles as a coach and a player. I'm just going to mention this name. Surin Spandarian started the Soviet Union basketball program. He was the best. He was the best basketball player during World War II for the Soviets during wartime. So we have a background in basketball. We just have never really implemented it to the extent of the way that we have our talent spread out, right? You got players in Syria, you got players in France. We got Antoine Allegre in France, who is playing in the French league, and he just won a championship in France. And he reached out to us and said, hey, I'm Armenian. I want to be a part of this.
That's sick.
Right? And that's because of Rex's name. But in 2016, you had Andre Spite Andre Spite didn't buy into the idea until he really saw the pieces go around him. Chris Jones buying into the idea in 2022, becoming a naturalized player, and look at him now. One of the best point guards in all of Europe loves the Armenian culture and is a part of it. So we really, with the interconnectivity of the diaspora that is able to implement, and for the nerds out there that are interested in diaspora studies, the person that started diaspora studies, William Safran and Khachik Tololian, both are scholars in diaspora studies that want to understand how does an institution stay alive in as a stateless entity, or a nation state that doesn't have all of its nation in one state. So
very interesting.
when you look at all of this and you combine it, and then you understand how the operation of a sports team can benefit when you got a group of people as scattered as the Irish do. Like I always say that, the Irish, I'm surprised they're in the C division, with all due respect. I'm surprised they're in the C division because there's so many great diaspora Irish people of basketball in the basketball game. So if you're able to use your resources and it falls within your constitution in Armenia, why not use it? But you can't go all in on one group of Armenians, because that is a cultural disaster waiting to happen. So
you need a balance.
Yeah,
I think to that point,
we need a starting point too.
Exactly. So. This game that's coming up, I think you mentioned it. It is going to be the first time that most people have the chance to, at least from this part of the world, to see this team. What are some of your takeaways about these two games coming up? What are some of your expectations? What are some of the things that you want to see come out of this game?
I want to see exactly what I've been seeing from these guys in the past few months. They are sick and tired of being the underdogs. Our organization has 2 gold medals. I think that is something to respect. Many will say, yeah, well, it's the European small countries, right? Well, I understand that, but you also have to understand where Armenia is and what its resources are. There's absolutely zero reason, for example, a country of Norway's stature should be ranked lower than us, but we're ranked higher than them. Especially when not a single dollar comes from the Armenian government to the Armenian national team, right? We are our own entity. We are a non-governmental organization that has nothing to do with the government. And many countries, for example, Norway, receive money from their country to establish things like this. So I would like to kind of redirect the interest to many as to what this game means. This game is going to be moving forward, we're probably not going to treat Armenian basketball the same way as we used to. Because
this will change a lot of things.
This will change a lot of things, and it will change how the youth will view Armenian basketball. The names next to Armenian basketball, just ranging from Tequila Mandala all the way down to USC Keck Medicine, right? Fanexa, Dave's Hot Chicken, all these brands, they're all working with us to elevate Armenian basketball. And I can't even thank SATA Systems enough, being the number 1 Google partner in the business world, being our team sponsor for many years. So they believe in us, and we're starting. We've believed in us. Of course, our partners are starting to believe in us, and then now we just need the community to believe in us. And that is something that I've learned through, for example, a lot of my core values, right? I'm a big Sopranos fan, and for those out there that love Sopranos,
I too.
What does Tony Soprano say? Those that want respect, give respect, right? And let's talk about Rex Kalamian. Very important figure. The amount of respect he gives to every single person, asks you about your day. He may have never met you. He'll ask you how your Friday is going. What was the biggest peak of your day? What was the biggest pit of your day? All those things, right? You recognize that there's a core value of respect, right? When players are starting to yap a little bit, he starts shaking his head. He goes like, you don't understand. You're not going to win a single game or even have a single minute if you're not going to be humble. Humbleness comes first because we're a bunch of guards. What we're going to do this following week, as we're approaching June 16 and June 17, is that we're going to truly shock the world. Hashtag defy all odds. That's our thing. Defy all odds. We should not be in this position. Statistically speaking, Armenians as a group of people should not have a country. Statistically speaking, we should not be able to have our own flag. That means defying all odds. We've gotten to the point that we are here. Now, what does that mean in the sports realm? You have to defy all odds in order to break that wall and get to that next point. So what I would like to see, to wrap around and come back to that question, is truly the legitimacy, the surprise factor, and the freshness of now, where a bunch of kids are going to be like, where do I buy this jersey?
Yeah.
Where do I buy this Armenia jersey? I want to be a part of it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it's all about, truly.
No, it's definitely it's a breaking point of, Armenian basketball or Armenian history, if you think about it, because in terms of, like you guys said, never played in the States. Let's talk about a little bit of some of the players that are on this team, because for me, I love you're like that too. I know you love digging into the details.
Yeah.
So is this safe? Can we talk about the guys that are on the roster?
The roster starting to get.
Can we talk about that now?
It's safe. As of 9
Is
a.m.
the
when we're
roster
recording.
complete, or
The
are there
roster is
still
complete.
changes being made?
So the roster is complete until further notice, at least. The French are also kind of shaking up their roster, so we don't have their full roster as of right now, but we definitely have ours. And it's available for those that are interested on Zartonk Media. They are providing a lot of coverage for the Armenia the national Armenian basketball team. So I would recommend, for those that are interested right now, to watch what that roster looks like, to visit there. But we can definitely start talking about a couple of the players. So you want to start with guards or the big guys?
Pat?
Well, I mean, obviously the big names, Chris Jones, Andre Spite, they've been on the team before. But I think the big name, everybody's been talking about it. Connor Esigian. We already know the other guys. Most of the players that were on the previous team last year were there. But obviously this is a big pickup. Yeah. Can you kind of talk about what happened? What was that process? And yeah.
So Rex has been Connor has been a part of the conversation for quite some time. It's not a new subject per se. However, how it fell in line with Connor's personal goals, that was the question, right? Obviously, a player born in the United States, getting interest from the U.S. men's national team as well. It was a tough conversation to start off with, and Rex was the main one that kind of led it, of course, and his proximity from Detroit and to Wisconsin was helpful, of course. However, let's give credit to the Esigian family for truly connecting with their roots and believing in this, because Connor's father, for example, a Fresno Armenian, had fond memories of his Armenian experiences growing up in Fresno. So a lot of the credit actually should fall into Connor's hands of believing in where this falls in line with his future. And I think Connor recognizes the support he's receiving from the Armenian community. He recognizes the support he will receive continuing moving forward as well. But nonetheless, a player of Esigian's caliber, I mean, all-team freshman, an all-freshman honoree in the Big Ten, the toughest competition probably out there, and you guys might agree or disagree on that, but one of the toughest competition out there, excelling and being one of the top scouting reports in his class in terms of a shooter, of his very streaky shooter, and especially with the way game has developed nowadays. I think a player like Connor Esigian, of course, is going to be something new for Armenians to grasp, and just seeing that Armenia jersey is going to really get a lot of youngins to believe in.
Pat and I, both big-time Big Ten guys. Our dad went to Ohio State. Watch a lot of Big Ten Network at home.
Did he really go to Ohio?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So he's always watching the Big Ten Network when it comes to college basketball, football seasons. We had a chance to watch Connor a lot. it would be really cool to talk with him one day and just kind of chat a little bit about that side of things too. But I'm excited to see all of these guys just come together. I think what you just said right before, putting that jersey on definitely means something different for these guys. And I mean, if I were to put a jersey on for my country, no matter, I mean, we feel pride wearing a jersey to go play anywhere, let alone an Armenian national team jersey. I'm excited. I know Pat's excited. We're hoping to be there in some way, shape, or form. Kind of give us your kind of, I want to wrap up all of what we've talked about in a way. What are some of your kind of final thoughts in a way about everything that you're up to, everything that's going on in the basketball world, and how it all ties in?
Understand the game more from an angle of technicality and not necessarily from emotion. And I say this wholeheartedly because a lot of the experiences lately that I've been, getting from speaking to parents, from speaking to players, is that they truly don't understand what it takes to be great. And what I mean by that is how you take care of yourself, the habits that you have, your communication skills, your ability to take constructive criticism. All of these things fall under being great. And as a person that, we just threw recently a U16 to U18 basketball camp. And there was a lot of takeaways I had in my mind. And it was, I don't think these kids realize what they have in their hands.
Yeah.
I don't think they understand how crazy of a thought it would be to be 12, 13, 14 years old and to have a guy like Rex Kalamian who is meeting with all these kids and giving them the recipe to success. And we say 5-year, 10-year plans, so we truly mean that. We truly mean that by the time 5-10 years later, Anto Balian is going to be 26. So this is meant for the Avondorians, the Anto Balians, the Greg Gazarians to have a foundation moving forward. And what that means is clean up your act, become a professional, and understand what it takes to be an athlete, because it takes a lot more than just being able to put the ball in the hoop and to look nifty out there. Right. Because I guarantee you need that passport, you need that paperwork. So if for those that are actually interested in playing for the Armenian national team and just wanting to get a taste of what that means, understand that it's no walk in the park. Getting that Armenia passport means something very important. And putting on that jersey, not many people can say that. I oftentimes don't consider myself even an Armenian national team player because I only played 20 and under. But that 20 and under team played Portugal, Switzerland, Macedonia, Montenegro, the champion of that year. We beat Estonia, we beat Switzerland, we beat Bulgaria. These are very big programs. And for us to be able to kickstart that back then with the Matt Madoyans and stuff, the key takeaway is learn what greatness requires. And then from there, have that step-to-step plan of kind of like what we talked about in the very beginning is set yourself very achievable goals on how to get to your dream. The operation of getting to your dream is very important. And this Armenia versus France game is a dream of mine. Truly. I mean, for those that are watching on the video, I have the scar because there was a nail sticking out in Armenia when we were playing, and I dove for the ball.
Which gym?
Yerevani Petakan Hamasaran. So Yerevan State University. Okay. So I dove for that ball, and I look up, and I'm like, oh my God. And they're like, oh, we need to get to the hospital. But we've come a long way. And we needed the years with, for example, Karl Bardakian trying his best. We needed those years of other coaches, right, also trying their best. The Garnis Benjins trying their best we needed them to walk in order for us to run today. And we are at the point where we can, but now we just got to become a lot more legitimate and a lot more professional immediately. And I think that Armenia versus France game, that's what's going to make us feel very good. The Toros Yatanikians, they're going to feel really good because they started this stuff. Yeah. The Danny Tarkanians coming. Like, these are very big names being involved.
That generation never had a chance to play on that Armenian national team.
Because Armenia didn't exist at the top. So now that we have an Armenia that exists, here we are, 40 years after our independence, 30 something years after our independence, like, 10 32 years now. Damn. But that's my biggest takeaway for those listening, and I do appreciate you guys providing the platform for not only Armenia basketball but for me.
We truly appreciate you coming on. Let's recap the game. Friday night. What time is the game at?
Friday night, 7 p.m. Saturday, 5 p.m. We're going to have pregame, halftime show, the whole thing, merch being sold. Come out, show out.
It's going to be fun, man.
Nice.
All right, Rich. Thank you once again.
Appreciate it, man.
Great episode. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Hopefully, this is out before that Friday night game. So, hope to see you guys there. This is Off the Court. Peace.